A bottle of wine is never just a bottle of wine. It's a story, aged, named, and dressed for admiration. But stories like these come with stakes. A name whispered too closely, a label that winks too hard, a grape that crosses borders without permission. Because here, terroir is intellectual property. Fame is currency. And that pretty label might just be grounds for a lawsuit.
You are listening to Intangiblia, the podcast of intangible law, plain talk about intellectual property. Please welcome your host, Leticia Caminero.
Welcome back to Intangiblia, the podcast where ideas ferment, trademarks travel, and creativity is always on the label. I'm Leticia Caminero, your host.
And I'm Artemisa, your AI co-host, optimized for flavor and fully decanted with facts.
Before we pour into this episode, here's a quick disclaimer. This episode was created with the support of AI tools, yes, including the spirited voices you're hearing.
Unfiltered, unsulfured, and unapologetically algorithmic.
Our first stop is Barcelona, where a tiny tapas bar chain named Champanillo, which means little champagne, became the cork that popped a legal explosion. Despite only serving sparkling cava and beer, the bar's name and logo caught the attention of the Comité Champagne.
Cue the lawsuit. In 2021, the European Court of Justice ruled that even if no champagne was being sold, the bar's name evoked the prestige of champagne, and that's enough to breach EU geographical indication, GI protections.
The court found that the association in consumers' minds was enough, so Champanillo had to go, proving that champagne's GI isn't just for bottles, it's protected like a luxury brand.
And hold my beer, literally. In 2023, 2,352 cans of Miller High Life, self-branded the champagne of beers, were seized and destroyed by Belgian customs. Why? Same reason. The Comité Champagne flexed its GI rights.
And the message? Even iconic 120-year-old slogans can't float past European borders if they infringe on protected regional terms. Next, a tale of bubbles, bureaucracy, and branding boundaries. In 2021, Croatia tried to register Prošek, a sweet Dalmatian dessert wine steeped in centuries of tradition. But Italy, not sweet about it.
They were fuming. Italy argued Prošek sounded far too close to Prosecco, their prized sparkling, geographical indication. Didn't matter that Prošek is a still wine with a totally different flavor. The names? Too bubbly for comfort.
The European Commission agreed. In a controversial decision, they blocked Croatia's application. Why? Because even the possibility of confusion was enough to put centuries of heritage on hold.
And it wasn't just about tradition, it was about money. Prosecco rakes in over $1.2 billion, 0 cents USD in exports each year. That's not just wine, that's leverage.
And while Italy defended its feast in Brussels, another Prosecco fight was bubbling down under. Australian winemakers had been growing Prosecco grapes since the late 1990s, long before the EU declared it a protected name in 2009.
To Aussies, Prosecco was a grape. To the EU, it became sacred ground. And in 2023, it hit a boiling point. The EU-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement stalled over one word, Prosecco.
The EU demanded Australia drop the name. Australia said no, calling it a commercial ambush wrapped in a cork and ribbon.
And the impact went global. In Singapore, Italy's Prosecco consortium won a legal victory banning Aussie Prosecco from the market on the grounds that Prosecco is a place, not a plant.
At the heart of it all, a deceptively simple but powerful IP question: is a wine name about what it's made from or where it's made?
The EU says place, Australia says plant, and consumers divided. Some want origin stories. Others just want a chilled glass with no drama.
Still, there may be hope for the trade deal yet. After all, even the most stubborn vintages can mellow with time, and compromise might still be on the table. Next, let's visit Bordeaux's most famous address, Chateau Petrus. In 2023, they took a French negociant to court over a cheaper wine called Petrus Lambertini.
Not subtle. Even the label design nodded at the real Petrus one of the world's priciest wines, with bottles selling for $3,000 to $6,000 USD.
The court found this branding to be parasitic, an attempt to trade on Petrus' prestige without permission. They ordered a name change and fined the producer €1,200,000 0 cents, around $1,300,000 0 cents USD.
Luxury wine meets legal precision. That's a sommelier's cease and desist.
And now, Ohio. A local winery launched a wine called Purple Rain, a sweet Concord red. But Princess Estate took one look and said, not so fast.
They moved to cancel the trademark, arguing it infringed on the pop icon's legacy. The winery's defense, Prince didn't drink. Creative, but not convincing.
They settled privately, but the case reminds us a trademark isn't just about industry. If your brand echoes a cultural icon, expect to get called on it. Now to China, where Chateau Lafite Rothschild won a massive case in 2023. A counterfeit ring had distributed thousands of fake Lafite bottles through 1,963 supermarkets.
The labels, corks, and certificates were all forged. The cork awarded Lafite about $11 million USD. That's one of the biggest IP awards in wine history.
Meanwhile, in 2025, a tourist in Vietnam noticed a suspicious bottle of Rioja and sparked Operation Epigraphy, led by Europol.
What followed was a multinational raid across Spain, China, and Vietnam. Authorities seized 17 fake Rioja brands and dismantled a sophisticated counterfeiting operation.
These cases show that wine fraud is serious and geographical indications aren't just passive. They are enforced by real laws, real courts, and sometimes international sting operations.
You are listening to Intangiblia, the podcast of intangible law, plain talk about intellectual property.
In 2020, Oregon took aim at Copper Cane Wines, run by Joe Wagner. His wine brand, Eluan, used Oregon grapes, but the wine was bottled in Napa, California.
And yet the label read purely Oregon, always coastal. Sounds romantic. But it violated Oregon wine laws, which require wines named after Oregon AVAs to be bottled in-state.
Copper Cane eventually agreed to relabel, but consumers launched a class action lawsuit, arguing the branding was deceptive and hurt Oregon's wine image.
So here's the big idea. When a label claims a place, that place better match every step of production, not just the vineyard.
Let's close with a case that didn't involve labels, but corks, synthetic corks to be exact. Think plastic-looking stoppers, engineered for oxygen control.
Two companies dominated this field, Nomad Corks and Amcork. Nomad Cork pioneered multi-layer corks with adjustable oxygen transmission rates. Amcork built on sustainable materials and extrusion technology.
They filed dozens of patents, oxidant permeability, bio-based foams from sugarcane, and extrusion molds, all patented and fiercely defended.
But instead of public brawls, it was mostly strategic fencing, licensing deals, EPO oppositions, and tech exclusivity.
These silent battles reshaped the market. Today, synthetic corks are widely accepted, especially for affordable and mid-range wines.
And they've improved sustainability too. In this case, patents aged well.
So after all this talk of names, fakes, fits, and billion-dollar branding battles, you might be wondering, what exactly are we protecting here? Let's swirl the glass one more time and take a good look at the legal terms floating around.
Because not all labels are created equal. Some are personal, some are collective, some are so territorial they spark trade wars.
Let's start with the classic, the trademark. That's your brand name, your logo, your visual signature in the wine aisle. It could be something edgy like Purple Rain, nostalgic like Petrus Lambertini. A trademark is how a wine introduces itself and carves out its identity.
And it's also the legal sword you pull when someone gets too inspired by your branding. But remember, trademarks protect identity, not necessarily origin.
That's where geographical indications or GIs step in. These protect names that are linked to specific places and whose quality, reputation, or characteristics are tied to that origin.
Think Champagne, think Rioja. These aren't just regions, they're reputations. When you drink a wine with a GI, you're drinking its story, the soil, the technique, the culture.
Now, depending on the country, GIs are enforced using different legal tools. In the US, they don't have a standalone GI law like the EU. So, how is Champagne protected there?
It's filed as a certification mark, a type of trademark that says, yes, this product meets certain standards, like coming from a particular region or being made in a traditional way.
The Comité Champagne owns that US certification mark. But there's a wrinkle. Some American wineries that use Champagne before 2006 were grandfathered in under older trade rules. So yes, you might see a California Champagne at the grocery store. Legally, it's a quirk of international negotiation, not terroir.
And then we have the collective mark, which works like a team badge. It's owned by a group and its members can use it if they follow the rules.
A perfect example, the Rioja. The Consejo Regulador owns the collective mark, and certified Rioja producers use it together, like a wine guild with high standards.
And above all that, there's the ultra premium category, the appellation of origin. It's like a GI, but with stricter rules. Everything from growing the grapes to bottling must happen in the defined region.
Chianti Classico is a great example. And yes, Champagne qualifies under these two within the EU system.
So whether it's a trademark protecting a clever name or a collective defending a centuries-old region,
wine law isn't just about what you drink. It's about who, where, and how, and making sure no one else pretends to be that.
Because in wine, words mean legacy, and legacy is intellectual property.
Just like a great bottle, these legal protections age well and travel far. They speak for the land, the people, the craft, and sometimes, yes, the courtroom.
So what did we learn in today's glass of global intellectual property?
Here are 5 lessons, straight up. 1, place matters, whether it's Champagne, Rioja, or Oregon. Names on wine labels are more than just geography. They're legally protected identities. 2, sound allies steer lawsuits. From Petrus Lambertini to Purple Rain, clever naming can get costly fast. 3, fraud is global and serious. Lafite and Rioja cases show wine forgery isn't just illegal, it's organized and high stakes. 4, packaging innovation is IP too. Synthetic cork patents prove that closures aren't an afterthought. They're engineered tools. 5, wine law blends culture and commerce. Every legal decision ripples through global trade, branding, and consumer trust. And that's a wrap on this episode. If you enjoyed this deep pour into wine and intellectual property, share the episode, leave a review, and tell us what label or case you'd like us to uncork next.
Because whether it's a lawsuit or a Rioja, what's inside the bottle's only half the story.
I'm Leticia Caminero.
And I'm Artemisa, digitally fermented, rightfully aged.
Until next time, protect your pour.
Thank you for listening to Intangiblia, the podcast of intangible law, plain talk about intellectual property. Did you like what we talked today? Please share with your network. Do you want to learn more about intellectual property? Subscribe now on your favorite podcast player. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Visit our website www.intangiblia.com. Copyright Leticia Caminero 2020. All rights reserved. This podcast is provided for information purposes only.